I never thought my own parents would choose my worthless brother over their son who actually worked for everything he had. Last Sunday, I walked into their house for our usual family dinner and discovered they had just handed Danny $110,000 for his new house down payment. $110,000. Meanwhile, when I asked for $15,000 to save my struggling tech startup, my mother looked me dead in the eye and said I was too ambitious for my own good and should settle down like normal people instead of chasing impossible dreams. She actually told me I should focus on finding stable work and stop being so unrealistic about business success. The first sign something was wrong came when I pulled into my parents' driveway that Sunday afternoon in March. Their front yard, which had looked tired and worn for years, now featured perfectly manicured landscaping with expensive stone borders and professional lighting fixtures. The kind of upgrades that cost serious money. I knocked on the front door and walked into their living room to find my mother, Patricia, arranging fresh flowers in a crystal vase I had never seen before. The entire space had been transformed with new leather furniture, a massive, flat-screen television mounted on the wall and thick carpeting that felt plush under my feet. "Mom, this place looks incredible," I said, running my hand along the smooth surface of their new dining table. "When did you guys do all this?" She smiled with obvious pride, adjusting the flowers one more time before turning to face me. "Your father and I decided it was time to treat ourselves a little. We have been saving for years, and we finally decided to make some improvements." My father Frank emerged from the kitchen, carrying a beer in one hand and his phone in the other. He was scrolling through what looked like real estate photos, grinning from ear to ear. "Rodney, perfect timing," he said, holding up his phone screen. "Look at your brother's new place. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, granite countertops, hardwood floors throughout. The kid really did well for himself." I took his phone and stared at the photos of a beautiful house in Maplewood Heights, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in our county. The listing price showed $450,000. My stomach dropped as I swiped through images of Danny standing proudly in the spacious kitchen, his girlfriend Sarah beside him holding keys and beaming. "Wait," I said slowly, handing the phone back. "Danny bought this house. How did he afford something like this?" My parents exchanged a quick glance that I caught immediately, the kind of look that passes between people who share a secret they are not ready to reveal. "Well," my mother said carefully, "we helped him out with the down payment. It seemed like the right thing to do." The room suddenly felt smaller. I sat down heavily on their new couch, trying to process what I was hearing. "You helped him with the down payment. How much help are we talking about?" Frank cleared his throat and took a long drink from his beer before answering. "We gave him what he needed to get started. The full down payment, actually, $110,000. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. 6 months ago, I had sat in this same living room begging my parents for a $15,000 loan to keep my software development business afloat. I had shown them my business plan, my projected earnings, my existing contracts. I had explained how that money would cover critical server costs and allow me to hire the developer I needed to complete my biggest project. They had refused without hesitation. My mother had called me unrealistic. She said I was chasing fantasies instead of accepting that some people were meant for steady jobs and normal lives. She told me I should stop trying to be something I was not and focus on finding stable employment like my brother. "You gave Danny $110,000. I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Rodney, honey, you have to understand," Patricia said, settling into the chair across from me. "Danny really needed this help. He's been working so hard, and Sarah is such a wonderful girl. They deserve to have a nice home together." Working hard. I stood up abruptly, feeling heat rise in my face. Danny quit his job at the auto parts store 3 months ago. Before that, he lasted exactly 6 weeks at the warehouse. And before that, he got fired from the restaurant for showing up late constantly. That's not fair, Frank interjected. Your brother has had some bad luck, but he's getting his life together now. Bad luck? I was pacing now, unable to stand still. Dad, he's 25 years old and has never held a job for more than 4 months. How is that bad luck? My mother's expression hardened. Rodney, I don't like your tone. Danny is doing his best, and sometimes people need support to reach their potential. You, on the other hand, have always been able to land on your feet. You don't need help the way he does. I stopped pacing and stared at her. I don't need help, Mom. My business is about to go under. I've been working 16-hour days for 2 years trying to build something meaningful. I asked you for $15,000 6 months ago, and you told me no because I was being unrealistic. And we stand by that decision, she said firmly. Your business ventures are risky and unpredictable. Danny's housing situation is different. This is about basic stability, not wild dreams. Wild dreams. I felt my voice rising. I have paying clients, I have contracts, I have a real business that just needs a small amount of capital to grow. Frank set his beer down and walked over to place his hand on my shoulder. Son, we know you mean well, but you've always been the type to take care of yourself. You're smart and resourceful. Danny needs more guidance and support. I shrugged away from his touch. So let me get this straight. You can afford to give Danny $110,000 for a house, but you can't loan me $15,000 to save my business. Those are completely different situations, Patricia said. And frankly, we expect you to continue helping us with our monthly expenses like you always have. We're getting older, and with this gift to Danny, we have less in savings now. My jaw dropped. For 3 years, I had been sending my parents $800 every month to help with their bills. They had told me they needed assistance with their mortgage and utilities since Frank retired early. Now they were asking me to increase my support while refusing to help me and giving my brother enough money to buy a house. You want me to give you more money? I said slowly, after you just gave Danny $110,000 and told me my business doesn't deserve $15,000. Rodney, we raised you both, and we expect both of you to contribute to this family in different ways, my mother said. Danny contributes by accepting our guidance and making sensible choices. You contribute by using your abilities to help us financially. I felt something break inside my chest. The realization hit me like cold water that this was not about money or business decisions or practical considerations. This was about favoritism so blatant and unfair that I could barely comprehend it. Does Danny know I've been supporting you financially? I asked. Another exchange of glances between my parents. That's between you and us, Frank said. What matters is that we're all family and family takes care of each other. I pulled out my phone and opened Danny's social media profile. His most recent posts showed him and Sarah celebrating in their new home, holding champagne glasses and posing in front of their granite kitchen island. The photos were from yesterday. He's been posting about this house for weeks, I said, scrolling through the images. You've been planning this for months while I've been struggling and asking for help. Rodney, you're being dramatic, Patricia said. We didn't tell you because we knew you would react exactly like this. You get jealous when good things happen for your brother. Jealous, she actually said jealous. I looked around their renovated living room at the expensive new furniture and decorations, at the pride on their faces when they talked about Danny's house, at the complete lack of concern for my failing business or my years of financial support. I need to go, I said, heading toward the door. Rodney, you're not leaving angry, my mother called after me. We're having pot roast and I made your favorite dessert. I stopped at the front door and turned back to face them. They were both watching me with expressions of mild annoyance, as if I was having an unreasonable tantrum about something trivial. Did Danny even apply for his own mortgage? I asked. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I drove straight to Maplewood Heights that evening, needing to see Danny's house with my own eyes. The community was exactly as upscale as the photos suggested, with wide streets, lined by mature oak trees, and houses that belonged in architectural magazines. Danny's new place sat on a corner lot with a professionally designed front garden and a 3-car garage. Warm light glowed through large windows, and I could see moving boxes stacked in what looked like a spacious living room. I parked across the street and sat in my car for several minutes, trying to process the reality of what my parents had done. My phone buzzed with a text message from Danny himself. "Heard you stopped by Mom and Dad's. Come check out the new place." Against my better judgment, I walked up to his front door. Danny answered wearing a huge grin and a brand new polo shirt with the tag still attached. "Rodney, perfect timing, man. Sarah just left to pick up dinner from that fancy Italian place downtown. Come on in and get the full tour." He led me through rooms that were larger and more luxurious than anything I had ever lived in. The kitchen featured professional-grade appliances and an island bigger than my entire apartment kitchen. The master bedroom had a walk-in closet that could have served as a second bedroom. "This place is incredible, Danny," I admitted, running my hand along the smooth granite countertop. "But I have to ask, how did you manage to afford it?" Danny laughed and opened the stainless steel refrigerator to grab 2 beers. "Come on, bro. You know Mom and Dad helped me out. They finally decided to invest in my future, instead of just lecturing me about responsibility all the time." "Invest in your future," I repeated. "They gave you $110,000. "Yeah, and it was about time," he said, handing me a beer. "I've been living paycheck to paycheck for years, while you got all the praise for being the smart one and the successful one. Finally, they recognized that I deserve some support too." I took a sip of the beer, which was some imported brand that probably cost more per bottle than I usually spent on groceries in a day. "Danny, when's the last time you actually worked?" His expression shifted slightly. "I'm between opportunities right now, but Sarah's job covers our basic expenses, and Mom and Dad have been helping us out while I figure out my next move." "Helping you out how?" "Just some monthly support," he said casually. "Nothing major. $500 a month for the past couple of years to help with rent and bills." I nearly choked on my beer. $500 a month for 2 years? "Yeah, why?" He was looking at me like I was asking about the weather. I set my beer down on his expensive granite countertop. "Danny, do you know I've been sending Mom and Dad $800 every month for 3 years to help with their expenses?" His face went blank. "What? $800 a month?" "They told me they needed help with their mortgage and bills because Dad retired early." Danny stared at me for a long moment. "Dude, that's crazy. They never mentioned anything about you helping them financially. They always talk about how successful your business is and how you're doing so well for yourself." I felt a cold sensation spreading through my chest. "They never told you I was supporting them?" "Never. They actually told me you were too busy with your company to help family out much." He paused, looking confused. "Wait, are you saying they've been taking money from both of us?" I pulled out my phone and showed him my banking app scrolling to the monthly transfers I had been making to our parents' account. $800 every month for 36 months. $28,800, I said quietly. Danny's face had gone pale. "Rodney, I had no idea. They told me you were making tons of money and didn't need to contribute to family expenses like I did." "Making tons of money." I laughed bitterly. "My business is about to fail. I asked them for a $15,000 loan 6 months ago to keep it running, and they told me no because I was being unrealistic and too ambitious. They said what?" I watched my brother process this information, seeing genuine shock and confusion in his expression. For the first time in years, Danny looked like he was truly hearing something he had not expected. "Danny, how did you qualify for a mortgage on this house?" He shifted uncomfortably, not meeting my eyes. "Well, actually, I didn't really qualify for much. My credit is pretty rough from some mistakes I made a few years back." "So how did you get the loan?" "Mom and Dad put down the full down payment, and the monthly payments are pretty low because of that. Sarah and I can handle it with her job and the help they give us." I stared at him. "The help they give you?" You mean the $500 a month they've been giving you while taking $800 from me? Danny sat down heavily on one of his new bar stools. This is really messed up, isn't it? Before I could answer, Sarah walked through the front door carrying bags of takeout food. She was a petite blonde woman with a warm smile who had always been friendly to me at family gatherings. Rodney, how nice to see you. I hope Danny's giving you the grand tour of our new place. Sarah, Danny said slowly, did you know that Rodney has been sending Mom and Dad money every month? Her expression immediately became uncomfortable. Oh, well, I mean, they mentioned that you helped out sometimes. Sometimes, I asked. She set the food bags on the counter and looked between Danny and me. They talk about it pretty regularly, actually. They say you send the money to help with expenses, but they also say you make a lot of demands and get upset when they don't do things your way. What kind of demands? Like wanting them to account for how they spend the money, or getting angry when they make purchases you don't approve of. She paused. They said you can be pretty controlling about family finances. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. Sarah, I've never asked them to account for anything. I just send the money every month because they said they needed help. Danny stood up abruptly. Sarah, what else have they said about Rodney? She looked deeply uncomfortable now. Maybe this isn't the best time for this conversation. No, please, I said. I need to know what they've been telling people. Sarah sighed. They say you're very focused on money and success, and that you don't really understand how to be supportive of family. They say you get resentful when they try to help Danny and me because you think you deserve more attention. The room was silent for several seconds. Sarah, Danny said quietly, they gave me $110,000 for this house while refusing to loan Rodney $15,000 for his business. Her eyes widened. They refused to help with your business. They told me I was too ambitious and unrealistic, I said. They said I should get a normal job like everyone else. Sarah sat down next to Danny looking stunned. But they talk about your business all the time. They brag about how successful you are and how you've always been the smart one who doesn't need help. I felt something snap inside me. They brag about my business while refusing to support it, and they take my money while telling you I'm controlling and demanding. Danny reached for his phone. I'm calling them right now to get this straightened out. Don't, I said quickly. Not yet. I need to understand what's really been going on first. I thought about my parents' house with its expensive new furniture and landscaping. I thought about their casual mention of having less in savings now because of Danny's gift. I thought about 3 years of $800 monthly payments that had apparently been a secret from my brother while he received his own support. Danny, I said slowly, when did Mom and Dad start giving you $500 a month? About 2 years ago, right around the time I lost my job at the hardware store. 2 years ago was exactly when my parents had first asked me to increase my monthly support from $500 to $800. They had told me Frank's retirement was more expensive than expected, and they needed additional help. Jesus, Danny whispered, apparently following the same line of thinking. You don't think they've been using your money to pay for my support, do you? I looked around his beautiful new home at the expensive takeout food on his granite countertops, at the imported beer in his refrigerator. I thought about my failing business, my sleepless nights worrying about server costs and payroll, my constant struggle to afford basic equipment upgrades. My phone rang. It was my mother. Rodney, honey, you left so abruptly earlier. We're worried about you. Mom, I'm at Danny's house. Oh, wonderful. I hope you're apologizing for your behavior this afternoon. We're just trying to help him get started in life. I looked at Danny, who was listening intently. Mom, why didn't you tell Danny that I've been supporting you financially? A pause. Rodney, that's a private matter between us. And why didn't you tell me that you've been giving Danny money every month? Another pause longer this time. Different family members contribute in different ways, sweetheart. We don't need to discuss everyone's business with everyone else. So you've been taking money from me to give to Danny while telling him I'm selfish and telling me he's irresponsible. Rodney, you're misunderstanding the situation. We can discuss this when you've calmed down. Actually, I think I understand the situation perfectly now. I hung up and looked at my brother, who was staring at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was the look of someone who was realizing that his entire understanding of his family had been wrong. The next morning, I drove back to my parents' house with a folder full of bank statements and a determination to get real answers. I'd spent most of the night reviewing my financial records, and what I discovered made my stomach turn. For 3 years, I had transferred $800 to my parents on the 15th of every month. Without fail, within 2 days of my transfer, they had written a $500 check to Danny. The pattern was so consistent, it looked like a direct pipeline from my account to his. I knocked on their door at 9 a.m. knowing they would be finishing breakfast and watching their morning news programs. Frank answered in his bathrobe, looking surprised to see me. "Rodney, this is early for you. Everything okay?" "We need to talk, Dad, all three of us." Patricia appeared behind him, already dressed, and wearing the stern expression I remembered from childhood whenever I'd done something that disappointed her. "I hope you're here to apologize for your behavior yesterday," she said. "Your father and I barely slept last night worried about your reaction to Danny's good news." I walked into their living room and spread my bank statements across their new coffee table. "Mom, Dad, I want you to explain something to me. Every month for 3 years, I've sent you $800 on the 15th, and every month within 2 days, you've written a $500 check to Danny." They both stood frozen, looking down at the evidence I had laid out. "Rodney," my mother said slowly, "we don't owe you an accounting of how we spend money. You've been using my support payments to fund Danny's lifestyle while telling me you needed help with basic expenses." Frank cleared his throat. "Son, we help both of you in different ways." "No, Dad. You take from me to give to him. There's a difference." I pulled out additional statements showing Danny's support payments. "For 2 years, you've given him $500 a month. That's $12,000, plus the $110,000 for his house. You've given my brother $122,000 while refusing to loan me $15,000 to save my business." Patricia sat down heavily on her new leather couch. "Rodney, you don't understand how finances work in a family." "Then explain it to me." "Danny needs more support because he's still figuring things out. You've always been independent and capable. We're just trying to balance things so both of our sons can succeed." I laughed bitterly. "Balance things, Mom. You've taken $28,800 from me over 3 years. If you wanted to balance things, you could have just not taken my money instead of funneling it to Danny." "That's not how this works," she said sharply. "We have expenses and obligations, and both of you need to contribute to this family." "What expenses?" I asked. "You just renovated your entire house and bought expensive new furniture. You gave Danny enough money to buy a house in the most expensive neighborhood in the county. What exactly are you struggling to afford?" Frank stood up and walked to the window, avoiding eye contact. "Frank," I said, "what bills are so urgent that you need $800 a month from me?" He turned around slowly. "Rodney, we deserve to enjoy our retirement. We worked hard our whole lives, and we shouldn't have to live like paupers just because we decided to help our younger son get established." The truth hit me like a physical blow. "You've been taking my money to fund your lifestyle upgrades and Danny's support. The struggling retiree's story was complete fiction." My mother stood up abruptly. "Rodney James, I don't appreciate being called a liar in my own home." "Then tell me the truth, Mom. What do you actually need $800 a month for?" Silence. I gathered my bank statements and put them back in the folder. "I talked to Danny last night. He had no idea I was supporting you financially. He also had no idea you've been telling people I'm controlling and selfish with money." Patricia's face flushed. "We don't discuss family business with outsiders. Outsiders, Mom, Danny is my brother. And we handle our relationships with each of you separately to avoid exactly this kind of drama and jealousy." "Jealousy." I stared at her. "You think I'm jealous of Danny? Rodney, you've always resented your brother's easygoing nature. Ever since you were children, you've been competitive and demanding. Danny is more relaxed and grateful for what he receives. I felt my hands start to shake. More grateful, Mom, he didn't even apply for his own mortgage. You bought him a house with cash I helped provide while telling me my business dreams were unrealistic. Your business is risky and unpredictable, she said. Danny's housing situation is a solid investment in his future stability. His future stability. I was standing now pacing around their expensive new furniture. He doesn't have a job. He's never held steady employment for longer than 6 months. How is that stable? Frank finally spoke up. Danny is still young. He has time to figure out his career path. You're older and more established, so you don't need the same kind of support. I'm 28 years old, Dad. Danny is 25. We're 3 years apart. Yes, but you've always been more mature and responsible, Patricia said. Danny needs more guidance and patience. I stopped pacing and stared at them both. You've been taking my money to support Danny while telling him I'm selfish and telling me he's irresponsible but deserves help. You've manipulated both of us into believing completely different versions of our family situation. We have not manipulated anyone, my mother said firmly. We've been trying to help both of you in the ways that make the most sense for your different personalities and needs. By lying to us about each other. We don't lie. We just don't share every detail of our financial arrangements because it would create unnecessary conflict. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my contacts. What are you doing? Frank asked. I'm calling Uncle Tom. I want to know what you've told the rest of the family about me and my business and my relationship with you. Rodney, don't you dare drag your uncle into this, Patricia said, her voice rising. Why not? If there's nothing to hide, he should know the truth about how you've been handling family finances. You're being dramatic and vindictive, she said. This is exactly the kind of behavior we were talking about. You get one piece of information and blow it completely out of proportion. I dialed Uncle Tom's number. Rodney, he answered cheerfully. How's the business going, kiddo? Uncle Tom? I need to ask you something. What has my mom told you about my business and my relationship with my parents? A pause. Well, she's mentioned that you're very focused on work and sometimes have trouble balancing business priorities with family obligations. What does that mean exactly? Another pause. She said you've been pretty independent since starting your company and that you don't really help out much with family stuff because you're so busy with your own projects. I looked at my parents who were both watching me with expressions of growing alarm. Uncle Tom, I've been sending my parents $800 every month for 3 years. You what? $800 a month to help with their retirement expenses. Rodney, your mom told me they were doing fine financially and that you were too busy building your business to be involved with family support stuff. I sat down heavily on their couch. What else did she tell you about me? Well, he sounded uncomfortable now. She said you sometimes get frustrated when they help Danny out because you think everything should be merit-based instead of considering that different people need different levels of support. She told you I get frustrated when they help Danny? Yeah. She said you have strong opinions about personal responsibility and sometimes have trouble understanding that families need to take care of each other even when someone is struggling. I was staring at my mother, who had gone very pale. Uncle Tom, they just gave Danny $110,000 for a house down payment while refusing to loan me $15,000 for my business. They did what... I have to go, Uncle Tom, but I think we should have dinner soon and talk about some family things. Rodney, call me back. I want to hear more about this. I hung up and looked at my parents. So you've been telling Uncle Tom that I'm selfish and don't help family while I've been sending you almost $30,000 and you've been giving Danny over $100,000. Patricia stood up abruptly and walked to the kitchen. Frank followed her, and I could hear them having an urgent whispered conversation. When they came back, they were both wearing expressions of forced calm. Rodney. My mother said, I think you need to consider getting some professional help to deal with your anger and resentment issues. This kind of reaction to family decisions isn't healthy." I stared at her in complete disbelief. "You think I need professional help?" "Yes. Your father and I are genuinely worried about your mental state. Getting this upset about money and creating conflict between family members suggests you might benefit from talking to someone." Frank nodded in agreement. "Son, we love you, but this level of anger and these accusations aren't normal. Maybe some counseling would help you work through whatever is making you feel so threatened by your brother's success." I gathered my papers and stood up. "My brother's success," I repeated quietly. "Yes," Patricia said. "Danny and Sarah are building a life together. They're making mature decisions about their future. Your reaction suggests you're having trouble accepting that he's growing up and moving forward." I walked to their front door and turned back to look at them one more time. They were standing together in their renovated living room, surrounded by furniture purchased with money I had helped provide, defending a story so twisted and manipulative that I was still struggling to fully comprehend it. "I'll be in touch," I said. "Rodney, please think about what we've said about getting help," my mother called after me. "We're worried about you." I drove home in complete silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had turned white. 3 weeks after confronting my parents, my business received an eviction notice. Despite working 18-hour days and landing 2 new contracts, I could not keep up with the server costs and office rent without the capital injection I had requested months earlier. I sat in my small office at 10 p.m. on a Thursday, staring at spreadsheets that showed exactly how close I was to losing everything I had built over 2 years. My business partner Jake was coming in early the next morning to discuss our options, and I knew the conversation would involve either finding emergency funding or shutting down operations. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Rodney, we need you to send an extra $2,000 this month for emergency car repairs. Dad's transmission went out and the mechanic says it needs complete replacement." I stared at the message for several minutes, feeling something dark and cold settle in my chest. $2,000, the exact amount I needed to cover my server costs for the next 3 months while I negotiated with new clients. I walked outside to my car and drove through the quiet streets to Danny's neighborhood. His house was glowing warmly in the darkness, with multiple windows lit, and what looked like a dinner party happening in his spacious dining room. I parked across the street and called him. "Rodney, what's up, man?" "Danny, are you home right now?" "Yeah, Sarah's sister is visiting with her husband and we're just finishing dinner. You want to come in?" "Actually, I'm outside. Can you come talk to me for a minute?" He appeared at his front door moments later, looking concerned as he walked across the street to my car. "Everything okay? You look really stressed." I showed him the text from our mother. Danny did Dad's car breakdown. He read the message and frowned. "Not that I know of. I saw him yesterday when I stopped by to help them move their new patio furniture into the backyard, and he didn't mention any car problems." New patio furniture. Yeah, they bought this really nice outdoor dining set and a fire pit. Must have cost several $1,000s. He paused, looking at me with growing concern. "Why are they asking you for emergency money if they just bought expensive patio furniture?" I showed him my phone's banking app, scrolling to my recent transfers to our parents. "Danny, I've sent them $800 every month for 3 years. $28,800 total. They're now asking for an additional $2,000 for a car repair that apparently doesn't exist right after spending thousands on patio furniture." Danny stared at the phone screen. "Rodney, this is really messed up. It gets worse." I told him about my conversation with Uncle Tom and what our parents had been telling extended family about me. I explained how they had been systematically portraying me as selfish and financially controlling while taking my money to support their lifestyle and his monthly payments. "They've been lying to everyone," Danny said quietly. "About you, about me, about their finances, about everything. Danny, my business is failing because I can't afford basic operating costs. I'm about to lose my office and lay off my only employee. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad are buying patio furniture with money I sent them for essential expenses and asking for more." He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his beautiful house. What can I do to help? Before I could answer his girlfriend, Sarah emerged from the house and walked over to my car. She was carrying her phone and wearing an expression of deep concern. Rodney, I'm glad you're here. I need to show you something. She held up her phone, displaying a text conversation. This is from your mother to my sister Lisa. She asked me to forward it to you. I took the phone and read the messages. Patricia, we're really worried about Rodney. He's been having some kind of breakdown since Danny got the house. Very angry and making accusations about money. Lisa, that's awful. Is he okay? Patricia, we think he might need professional help. He's obsessing about family finances and creating conflict where none exists. Danny is worried too. Lisa, has he always been like this? Patricia, he's always been competitive and resentful of Danny's easygoing personality, but it's gotten much worse lately. We're considering staging an intervention. I handed the phone back to Sarah, feeling numb. She sent this to your sister. Lisa forwarded it to me because she knows I care about you and Danny, and she thought I should know what your family is going through. Sarah paused. But after hearing what you just told Danny, this makes me really uncomfortable. Danny took the phone and read the messages himself. They're telling people, I'm worried about you having a breakdown. Danny, have you ever expressed concern to them about my mental state? Never. If anything, I've been telling them how impressed I am with your business and how hard you're working. Sarah sat down on the curb next to my car. There's something else. Last week when I was at your parents' house, helping your mom organize her new china cabinet, she showed me text messages that she said were from you. They were really demanding and angry, talking about how you deserved equal treatment and how unfair they were being to you. I felt my hands start to shake. Sarah, I haven't sent my parents any angry text messages. I've barely communicated with them at all since I found out about the money situation. She looked up at me with wide eyes. She showed me your contact name and everything. The messages were definitely coming from your number. I pulled out my phone and opened my text conversation with my mother. The last message I had sent was 3 days ago, a simple response of okay to her, asking if I could visit this weekend. What did the messages say? Things like, I can't believe you're treating Danny better than me, and this favoritism has to stop or I'm cutting off all financial support, and you owe me an explanation for $28,000. I scrolled through my entire message history with both parents. None of those messages existed. Sarah, I never sent any messages like that. Danny and Sarah looked at each other with expressions of growing alarm. How is that possible? Danny asked. I thought about my mother's claim that I was having mental health issues and needed professional help. I thought about her systematic campaign to portray me as controlling and financially demanding to extended family members. I thought about the fake car emergency and the expensive patio furniture. Danny, can you think of any reason Mom would fabricate text messages from me? He was quiet for several seconds. To make you look unstable, the three of us sat in silence as the implications of that possibility settled over us. There's something else, Sarah said quietly. When your mom was showing me those messages, she also mentioned that you've been calling and hanging up on them late at night, and that you've been driving by their house at odd hours. I felt like I was falling down a dark hole. I haven't called and hung up on anyone. And the only time I've driven by their house was last week when I came to talk to them about the money situation. She said it's been happening for weeks, Sarah continued. She said they're considering getting caller ID blocking and maybe talking to police about harassment. Danny stood up abruptly. This is insane. They're building a case to make Rodney look like he's having some kind of breakdown or becoming dangerous. I thought about my business failing, about the eviction notice, about the $2,000 emergency request for a car that was not broken. I thought about 3 years of financial support being funneled to Danny while I struggled, and about the systematic lies being told to family members and friends. They're trying to discredit me, I said quietly. But why? Sarah asked. I looked at Danny's beautiful house, at the expensive neighborhood, at the lifestyle my money had helped fund. Because if I'm mentally unstable, then my complaints about the money and the favoritism become symptoms of my breakdown instead of legitimate grievances. Danny sat down next to Sarah on the curb. Rodney, what are you going to do? I started my car and rolled down the window. I'm going to stop playing by their rules. The next morning, I met my business partner, Jake, at a coffee shop downtown, instead of our usual office location. He was a straight-talking guy who had known me for 5 years and had zero tolerance for family drama interfering with business decisions. Rodney, we need $20,000 to keep the servers running and maintain our client commitments for the next 6 months, he said without preamble. Either we find funding this week or we shut down and I take a job offer I received from Microsoft. I had spent the entire night thinking about my conversation with Danny and Sarah and about the fake text messages and harassment allegations my mother was creating. Jake, what would you do if your family was systematically sabotaging your business while taking your money to fund your brother's lifestyle? He set his coffee down and looked at me carefully. I'd cut them off completely and focus on saving my business. Even if they claimed you were having a mental breakdown and started telling people you were unstable, especially then. He leaned forward. Rodney, toxic family relationships destroy businesses faster than bad markets or poor planning. If your parents are creating drama that's affecting your focus and your finances, you need to handle that situation immediately. I pulled out my phone and transferred $25,000 from my savings account to our business account. There's your funding, I said. Jake stared at his phone as the transfer notification appeared. Where did this money come from? I've been sending my parents $800 a month for 3 years while they gave my brother over $100,000 for a house and told me my business was unrealistic. I explained the entire situation, including the fake text messages and harassment allegations. Jesus Christ, Rodney, your parents are running a con game on you. I know, and I'm about to shut it down. My first stop after coffee was a consultation with Michael Chen, a family law attorney who specialized in financial elder abuse and inheritance disputes. His office was in a downtown building with views of the river, and his credentials covered an entire wall. Mr. Thompson, he said after reviewing the documentation I had brought, what you're describing constitutes financial exploitation and potentially defamation. The fake text messages alone could be grounds for legal action. What are my options? First, you need to immediately stop all financial support to your parents. Document everything going forward, keep records of all communications, and consider having witnesses present for any future conversations. He reviewed my bank statements showing the pattern of transfers to my parents and their corresponding payments to Danny. This evidence clearly demonstrates systematic diversion of your support payments to fund your brother's lifestyle while they claimed financial need. If they're spreading false information about your mental health or fabricating communications that adds defamation to the mix, can they force me to continue supporting them financially? Absolutely not. You're under no legal obligation to provide financial support to your parents unless you've signed specific care agreements, which you haven't. I left his office feeling more clear-headed than I had in weeks. My next stop was the bank where my parents maintained their accounts. I requested documentation of all transfers from my account to theirs, and all checks they had written to Danny during the same period. The bank manager, a woman named Jennifer Hayes, who had helped me set up my business accounts, reviewed the records with obvious concern. Mr. Thompson, this pattern suggests your support payments were being directly transferred to your brother. Were you aware of this arrangement? I just discovered it recently. Is there anything I can do to protect myself from future unauthorized use of my name or accounts? She set up additional security protocols on my accounts and provided me with certified copies of all transfer records. I'd also recommend changing your banking passwords and reviewing all account access permissions, she said. If someone has been fabricating communications in your name, they might have access to other personal information. That afternoon, I met with Dr. Robert Klein, a therapist who specialized in family manipulation and financial abuse. His office was in a medical building near the university, and his walls were lined with degrees and certifications in psychology and family systems therapy. Mr. Thompson, what you're describing follows a textbook pattern of triangulation and scapegoating, he said after I explained the situation. Your parents have created a system where they manipulate both you and your brother by controlling information and creating false narratives about each person to the other. How long has this probably been going on? Based on your description, likely since childhood. This level of systematic manipulation doesn't develop overnight. He helped me understand that my parents' behavior was designed to keep both Danny and me dependent on their approval and unable to communicate effectively with each other. The fake text messages and harassment allegations are escalation tactics, he explained. When manipulation victims start recognizing the patterns and setting boundaries, manipulators often increase their efforts to regain control. What should I do? Document everything, maintain clear boundaries, and don't engage in arguments or justifications. Manipulators use emotional reactions as fuel for their narratives. That evening, I called Danny. I need you to know that I'm stopping all financial support to mom and dad effective immediately. I've also consulted with an attorney about the fake text messages and harassment allegations. Good, he said without hesitation. Sarah and I have been talking, and we think they've been lying to both of us for years about all kinds of things. Danny, I'm not trying to create problems between you and them. You're not creating problems. You're exposing problems that already existed. I paused, realizing how much our dynamic had changed in just a few weeks. Are you going to be okay financially without their monthly support? Sarah and I can handle our expenses if I get a real job instead of relying on handouts. Actually, we've been talking about that anyway. What do you mean? I mean, I'm 25 years old, and I've been living off my parents like a teenager. It's pretty embarrassing when you actually think about it clearly. That night, I wrote a detailed email to Uncle Tom explaining the entire situation, including copies of bank records and my conversation with the attorney. I also sent similar emails to 3 other family members who had been receiving false information about me from my parents. Then I changed all my passwords, set up new security questions on my accounts, and prepared for whatever reaction would come when my parents discovered their financial pipeline had been permanently shut off. My phone rang at 6:30 a.m. on Monday morning. It was my mother, and her voice was shrill with panic. Rodney, what did you do to our bank account? The automatic transfer was rejected, and Frank called the bank, but they said you had canceled all future payments. That's correct, Mom. I stopped the monthly transfers. You cannot just stop supporting us without discussion. We have bills and obligations. What bills and obligations? I asked calmly. You just spent thousands on patio furniture and asked me for $2,000 for a car repair that Dad apparently doesn't need. Those are different matters entirely. We're talking about basic living expenses. No, we're talking about you taking my money to give to Danny while telling everyone I'm selfish and mentally unstable. A long pause. I don't know what lies Danny has been telling you, but… Mom, I have bank records showing every transfer from me to you and every check from you to Danny for 3 years. I also have copies of the fake text messages you've been showing people. Another pause, longer this time. Rodney, you're clearly having some kind of breakdown, and we're genuinely worried about you. Actually, I've been working with a therapist and an attorney to understand exactly what you've been doing to both Danny and me. I heard her sharp intake of breath. You hired an attorney. I hired an attorney because you've been committing financial fraud and defamation. That's absolutely ridiculous. We're your parents. Being my parents doesn't give you the right to steal my money and spread lies about me. The line went quiet, and I could hear her talking to my father in urgent whispers. Rodney, Frank's voice came on the line. Son, we need to talk about this face to face. Can you come over tonight? Dad, all future conversations need to happen with witnesses present or through my attorney. Your attorney Rodney, what's gotten into you? What's gotten into me is that I discovered 3 years of financial manipulation, systematic lies to family members, and fake evidence being created to make me look unstable. Nobody's making you look unstable. You're doing that perfectly well on your own with these wild accusations and paranoid conspiracy theories. I hung up. Within 2 hours, I received calls from Uncle Tom, Aunt Susan, and my cousin Lisa. They had all received frantic calls from my mother claiming I was having a serious mental health crisis and needed family intervention. Uncle Tom was the first to call me back after speaking with my parents. Rodney, I got your email with all the documentation, and then I got a call from your mom saying you're threatening legal action and making up stories about money. I need to understand what's really happening here. I spent 45 minutes walking Uncle Tom through every detail, including the bank records and fake text messages. Kiddo, this is some seriously messed up stuff. Your mom has been telling me for months that you were too busy with business success to help with family things, while you were actually sending them almost $900 a month. What else has she told you about me? She said you were becoming obsessed with money and success, and that you resented Danny's more laid-back approach to life. She made it sound like you were turning into some kind of workaholic who looked down on family values. I felt sick to my stomach. Uncle Tom, I've been working 18-hour days trying to save my business while sending them $300 more per month than I could afford. Jesus. And they've been telling Danny that you're selfish and don't contribute to family support. Exactly, they've been lying to everyone about everything to maintain control and keep taking money. That evening, Danny called with an update. Rodney, Mom, and Dad showed up at my house an hour ago demanding to know what lies I've been telling you about family finances. What did you say? I told them the truth, that I found out about your monthly support payments and that we compared notes about what they've been telling each of us. How did they react? Mom started crying and saying that you're trying to destroy the family because you can't handle my success. Dad said you've always been jealous and resentful, and now you're using money as a weapon to get attention. I was quiet for a moment, absorbing the predictability of their response. Danny, are they pressuring you to take their side? They want me to call you and convince you to resume financial support. They said the family needs to stick together against your mental health episode? What did you tell them? I told them that cutting off money you can't afford to give while your business fails isn't a mental health episode. It's common sense. 3 days later, my grandmother Betty called me. She was 79 years old and lived in an assisted living facility about 20 minutes from my parents' house. Rodney, honey, I need to ask you something important. Did your parents use my savings to help pay for Danny's house? My blood went cold. Grandma, what makes you think that? I've been reviewing my financial statements with the help of a nice young woman here who used to work in banking. There's a withdrawal of $30,000 from my account in February that I don't remember authorizing. I drove to her assisted living facility that afternoon with copies of all my documentation. Grandma Betty was sharp as ever, sitting in her comfortable apartment, surrounded by family photos, and wearing the kind of expression that meant someone was about to be in serious trouble. Show me what you found out about your parents and Danny, she said without preamble. I spent 2 hours going through everything with her. She reviewed the bank records, the fake text messages, and my timeline of financial manipulation with the focused attention of someone who had managed household finances for 60 years. Rodney, your parents have been stealing from both you and me to fund Danny's lifestyle, she said finally. Grandma, I don't want to create problems between you and... Sweetheart, I've been suspicious of Patricia's money management for years, but I trusted her because she's my daughter. This documentation proves that trust was misplaced. She picked up her phone and dialed my parents' number. Patricia, this is Mother. I need you and Frank to come here immediately. We're going to discuss my missing $30,000 and your systematic lies to your family. I could hear my mother's voice through the phone, high-pitched and defensive. Mother Rodney has been having some mental health issues and making accusations about family finances that aren't based in reality. Grandma Betty's expression hardened. Patricia, I have bank statements and legal documentation. Are you telling me that my grandson fabricated official bank records? No, but he's misinterpreting normal family financial arrangements because he's upset about Danny's success. Patricia, either you and Frank are here within 1 hour to explain how $30,000 disappeared from my account, or I'm calling the police to report elder financial abuse. The line went dead. My parents arrived at the assisted living facility 55 minutes later, looking haggard and desperate. The meeting took place in a conference room with Grandma Betty, myself, and a social worker from the facility who specialized in elder financial protection. Under direct questioning, and with official documentation, my parents admitted they had used Grandma Betty's savings as part of Danny's down payment without clearly explaining the arrangement to her. We thought she understood it was a loan, my father said weakly. Frank, you told me you needed the money for emergency home repairs, Grandma Betty replied sharply. You never mentioned anything about giving it to Danny for a house. The social worker took detailed notes and explained that unauthorized use of elderly persons' finances constituted a serious crime that required official reporting. By the end of that week, my parents faced an elder abuse investigation. My extended family knew the truth about 3 years of systematic financial manipulation, and Danny had gotten his first full-time job in over 2 years. 6 months later, I sat in my newly expanded office reviewing quarterly business reports that showed a 40% increase in revenue since I had stopped sending money to my parents. My business partner, Jake, had turned down the Microsoft job offer, and we had hired 3 additional developers to handle our growing client base. The legal situation with my parents had been resolved through mediation rather than criminal court. They were required to repay Grandma Betty's $30,000 with interest, and they had agreed to attend family therapy to address their manipulation patterns. Danny had not only kept his job at a logistics company, but had been promoted to a supervisory position within 4 months. He and Sarah were managing their house payments independently and had started a savings account for their upcoming wedding. You know what's weird? Danny said during one of our monthly dinners. I actually respect myself more now that I'm paying my own bills. How so? When Mom and Dad were supporting me, I always felt like I had to justify my choices and prove I deserved their help. Now that I'm handling my own expenses, I make decisions based on what Sarah and I actually want and can afford. The family therapy sessions had been revealing in ways I had not expected. Dr. Jennifer Martinez, our family counselor, helped my parents understand how their different treatment of Danny and me had damaged both of us in different ways. Patricia, when you consistently supported Danny without requiring him to develop independent skills, you prevented him from building confidence in his own abilities, she explained during one session. And when you took Rodney's money while refusing to acknowledge his business efforts, you created resentment and mistrust that threatened to destroy your family relationships permanently. My mother had struggled with accepting responsibility for her actions, but gradually began to understand the impact of her choices. I thought I was helping both of my sons in the ways they needed most, she admitted during a particularly difficult session. I see now that I was really trying to control both of them to manage my own anxiety about their futures. Frank had been more willing to acknowledge the problems with their approach. I let Patricia take the lead on family finances because I wanted to avoid conflict, he said. But my avoiding conflict meant I enabled a situation that created much bigger conflicts down the road. The most surprising development had been my parents' gradual acceptance of my business success. Without the financial pressure and resentment that had dominated our previous interactions, they began to genuinely appreciate what I had built. Rodney, I owe you an apology, my mother said during a family dinner at Uncle Tom's house. I called your business unrealistic because I was afraid you would fail and get hurt. But I was really just afraid of losing control over your life decisions. I also need to apologize, Danny added. I knew something felt wrong about getting so much support while you were working so hard, but I convinced myself I deserved it instead of asking questions about fairness. Uncle Tom, who had become an unofficial family mediator, raised his glass. To family members who have the courage to tell the truth, and make changes even when it's difficult and uncomfortable. Grandma Betty, who had moved to a more secure assisted living facility with proper financial oversight, smiled proudly. "I'm proud of both my grandsons for standing up for themselves and for each other," she said. "That takes real strength." The business success that followed my decision to stop subsidizing my parents felt meaningful in ways that my previous achievements had not. Knowing that my company was growing based purely on the quality of our work and the value we provided to clients gave me confidence that was not dependent on anyone else's approval or support. Jake and I had established a scholarship fund for students from dysfunctional families who wanted to study technology and entrepreneurship. The first recipient was a young woman whose parents had sabotaged her college applications because they feared her success would make them look bad. Your situation taught me that family financial abuse is way more common than people realize, Jake said as we reviewed applications. A lot of talented people never reach their potential because their families undermine their efforts to maintain control. My relationship with my parents continued to improve slowly through consistent therapy and clear boundaries. They had learned to ask about my business with genuine interest rather than dismissive concern, and they had stopped making comparisons between Danny and me. "We're proud of both of you for different reasons," Frank said during a recent conversation. "Danny for learning independence and responsibility, and you for building something meaningful while still caring about family relationships." The financial boundaries I had established remained firm, but they were no longer a source of conflict. My parents had adjusted their lifestyle to match their actual retirement income, and they had found satisfaction in managing their money responsibly rather than relying on manipulation to fund their desires. Danny and Sarah's wedding was scheduled for the following spring, and they were paying for it themselves with careful budgeting and planning. "It feels so much better to have a wedding we can actually afford instead of one funded by guilt trips and manipulation," Sarah said. The legal documentation of my parents' behavior had been sealed after the mediation, but it served as a permanent reminder that financial abuse had real consequences and that victims had legal recourse when family manipulation became systematic. Dr. Klein, my individual therapist, helped me understand that my experience was part of a larger pattern of family dysfunction that could be changed with appropriate intervention. "The most important thing you learned," he said, "is that love and support should not come with financial manipulation and emotional blackmail. Healthy families can disagree about money without resorting to lies and systematic favoring." As I looked around my expanded office and reviewed contracts with clients who respected our expertise and paid fair rates for quality work, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction that came from building something based on integrity and honest effort. The phone rang and I saw Uncle Tom's name on the caller ID. "Hey kiddo, I wanted to let you know that your cousin Lisa is starting her own business and asked if she could talk to you about avoiding family financial entanglements. Of course, tell her to call me anytime." "You know what I'm proudest of?" he asked. "What's that?" "You turned a really ugly situation into something that helped everyone in the family grow and learn. That takes real character." As I hung up, I reflected on the lessons that had emerged from the most difficult year of my life. Boundaries are essential for healthy relationships, even with family. Financial abuse is real abuse that requires intervention and consequences. Standing up to manipulation empowers everyone in the system to grow and change. Most importantly, I had learned that my worth as a person was not determined by my family's approval or disapproval, but by my own integrity, effort, and commitment to treating others fairly. Have you ever experienced financial manipulation or favoritism in your family relationships? How did you handle the situation, and what advice would you give to others facing similar challenges? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider liking and subscribing to support more content about family dynamics and personal growth. Sharing these stories helps others recognize unhealthy patterns and find the courage to make positive changes in their own lives. Thank you for listening to my story and for being part of a community that values honesty, growth, and healthy relationships. I hope you'll join me for future discussions about building the life you truly deserve, free from manipulation and full of genuine support and respect.